A concept that sometimes takes a while to sink in for newcomers is the concept of null. Null is the absence of a value, or it can be an indicator that a value would be irrelevant in some cases. But null appearing in a calculation can have far-reaching effects on the outcome of that calculation, usually generating a null result. Some people react to this by religiously avoiding null at all costs, not even allowing columns in their database tables to accept null. But these people do not seem to understand what null is for. My purpose in this lesson is simply to introduce you to how null affects calculations. We will work with it more and in more realistic situations when we are retrieving data from database tables. But for now, let's just see how calculations respond to a null. So again, null means that we don't know what a value actually is. When this is the case, we cannot possibly know what the resulting value of a calculation containing null might be. So therefore, the result must also be null. It's that simple. Here are a couple of examples. Okay, so if null is inside of an arithmetic expression, a calculation of some kind with numbers, then it ends up with a null result. Let's try this now with a character string. So again, if we try to concatenate, in this case, null into a character string, otherwise we end up with a null character string. We can't possibly know what the result is. The places where I've used the raw null keyword could just as easily have been column names with some database table or other variables in the system. We will encounter such things as we go deeper into MySQL. But there will be times when we want to either locate null entries in some database column or anticipate nulls in our result set and assign some controlled value in place of a null. We have a couple of tools for this, functions that can convert a null parameter into something else. Here are the two primary functions we could use in those situations. IsNull is a function that returns a true indicator, the value 1, if its only parameter evaluates to null. In its simplest use, this can help us locate rows in a table where a specific column is null. But we can combine this with other logic to perform more interesting tests. Let's see how this works. We'll first use it with a non-null value. Okay, this gives us back a 0, indicating that 4, in fact, is not null. Now let's check it with a null value. Here we get back a 1, which says that null is null. That's pretty obvious, but if it were a variable of some kind or a calculation that couldn't be determined, then that would be more meaningful to us. But what if I wanted a null to be transformed into a value of some kind? We have a function for that too. This is the IfNull calculation. IfNull requires two parameters. The first is an expression that is evaluated to determine whether it is null. If that parameter value is not null, MySQL returns the value generated by that first parameter. But if the result of the first parameter is null, then the second parameter is evaluated and returned as the result of the function. Check it out. Here we got back the value 8 because that is the non-null result of the first parameter. Here we got back the alternate value, in this case a character string presenting a specific message. The second parameter could have been a much more complex expression that generates a dynamic value based upon other variables, but we'll see more interesting things like that shortly. I hope this little diversion has clarified at least some aspect of the null concept for you. We have one more topic to go in this chapter.